What's up, cops? I'm Lydia,
Hi, what's up, cops? I'm Marcus.
and we're here today to talk about El Adra and all things Adra. This is our Adra episode. I'm going to say it multiple times.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is an exciting topic that Marcus actually brought up in a very interesting context. So I'll let Marcus explain a little bit more.
yeah. I think Eid al-Adha is a big part of the Coptic life. The two
Yeah.
weeks, there's always a debate around mainly food, around who is fasting or not. Especially also folks
Yeah.
got out of fast, like Siyam al-Rusul, the
Yeah.
apostles fast, and it's like this, like there is like a small break, not a long break until folks, and then like all these traditions of like, oh, Tata used to do that with Eid al-Adha, Tant is doing this, oh, what are you gonna do?
Mm.
And the different variations of like Coptic practices between like, oh, folks would go to churches, or like the new things that
Mm.
start happening was the era of Pope Shenouda is like the revivals or the Nahda,
Mm.
where like
Mm.
folks would go and like do like extended hours at night, not just Ashiya, for like Taratil and like Tawangid and stuff like that. While also
Right.
traditionally we know that Copts have been doing not the revival stuff but the
Hmm.
Mulids stuff in
Interesting.
yeah, in places like Deir al-Adra في الدرونكا in Asyut, and other monasteries
Mm.
or adura or churches for
Mm-hmm.
St. Mary in Egypt. So there is always that conversation happening between
Mm.
Egypt and diaspora around these different practices. So,
Hmm. Could you maybe explain what a maulid is?
yeah. So what's interesting actually, and I
Mm.
like that you pronounced Maulid,
Mm.
because I think actually this is the variation between the Islamic and the Christian one.
Oh,
I think
see.
Copts actually don't like to pronounce it. But this has been for my experience and
Yeah.
with Copts too, especially also when I started studying Egyptian folklore,
Mm.
and then like. Copts, from my experience, they don't like to say, "Oh, it's not a Maulid," because it's like the
Mm-hmm.
Maulid Nabawi is like the birth
Mm-hmm.
of the Prophet Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
But still, Copts use the
Mm-hmm.
word Mulid
Mm.
with
Mm-hmm.
most Egyptians are, because also in Egypt with Muslims, some folks try to
Mm-hmm.
appeal more religious. Some Muslim folks try to appeal more religious, and they use
Mm-hmm.
the Fusha term or the modern standard Arabic term. So they say Maulid.
Mm.
It's not a Mulid, because also there is the look
Ah,
down.
okay.
There is
Okay.
the look down on the Egyptian Arabic in
Mm-hmm.
general, and
Mm-hmm.
the and we know that Mulids are
Hmm.
practiced by Egyptians, no matter what, if they are Christians, Muslims, and also
Mm.
Jews, and Baha'is and
Mm-hmm.
Shi'is. We still like
Fascinating.
this is still happening in Egypt. Of course,
Mm.
it used to be way more with Egyptian Jews living in Egypt, and
Mm-hmm.
Shi'is and Baha'is and many other groups.
Mm.
Actually, many people actually come from outside of Egypt for
Mm.
certain
Mm.
mulids that are in the remote areas,
Mm.
to celebrate a saint
Mm.
that is known that this saint was in Egypt or buried in Egypt or has a mulid in Egypt. So a mulid is a word that is mainly connected to celebration of
Mm.
a saint, whether Muslim or, but also it is connected to a specific class of Egyptians, lower and middle class Egyptians, which we might talk about it when we get into more details.
Yeah.
So the lang-
Okay. Interesting. I didn't even know that. That's a lot of good information.
there is a fascinating work by
Mm.
a scholar, a European scholar, Samouli Shalika, about mulids in Egypt. Also, work by another Syrian and Brazilian scholar
Hmm.
about mulids in Egypt. This is unpublished, but yeah, it's
Fun.
fascinating that, and we hope more Copts study mulids. So
Yeah.
and have
Yeah.
another look to mulids and Coptic celebrations in general beyond the church walls.
Fascinating. So we have a couple videos.
Yeah, we have let's share the screen, and I think the first screen is going to be your your commentary يا ليديا ها.
Yeah,
خلينا
yeah, yeah,
نبعت كده
yeah.
وبعدين نشغلها
Let's
الأول.
share this. So
This
I'll
is
just preface by saying I didn't know who this person was until everybody was sharing it on social media, and I was like, "Oh, am I just unaware?" So yeah, so we'll listen and maybe talk.
and that's actually that's the difference between usually. I think we need also always to remind folks that the Coptic experience, while it intersect between Egypt and diaspora, but also sometimes there are many nuances that is really related to Egypt and other nuances that is really related to Egypt, to diaspora. So if somebody doesn't know, if somebody who lived in Egypt and in a Coptic community, they would know who is this person is. But somebody
Right.
who didn't, but maybe even living their entire life with the diaspora Coptic community, they might
Yeah.
not know, and you would know more once we play the clip and Lydia would have the commentary.
Yeah.
Enjoy. I didn't want to pause before this last Zagruta. I love Zagarit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Tell
this
us
is
about the
Heidi
video.
Muntasser, صح?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have no idea who this person is at all. It was just it kept popping up on Facebook, and I'm an avid Facebook person because I love the drama, and I live for the drama. And I think what really alerted me was when I saw one of my friends was posting about her too, and was like, "I'm so excited she's here." One of the second gen folks. So I was like, "Oh, dang!" So I should probably know her. And really interestingly, this is with very minimal PR in Nashville, and this is at St. Mary. St. Mary is the church that's closest to the Melwood community, so usually where historically where the newcomers have come in. And it's in a former Protestant church that they've renovated extensively to be a Coptic church. So, yeah, so it was really interesting the churches that she chose. She chose to visit this one in the Melwood area, and then also in the Antioch area a little bit further down in St. Mark in Antioch. And you could see, even with very minimal PR, a lot of people who were coming out to see her. And the videos on Facebook got like over 100K views as well. So really interesting, and I love that people were singing along with her. I love that part of our collectivist cultures of seeing music as not something, it's always weird when you go to like a white concert or something, like a white orchestra, and everybody's just seated like very firm, yeah. Just like in order to show appreciation, you have to be very quiet. but in our culture, to show appreciation is to everyone to sing along and to participate. And I love that she was okay with that as well. She wasn't one of those, hello, I'm the singer in the room. Yeah.
And Abuna, like you see the Abunas are
Yeah, with the
like,
phone.
and Abuna, there is Abuna in the phone. Hey, like hey, Heidi
Yeah.
Muntasser is here. So
Yeah, yeah. And they just live streamed it. So it was someone on their phone. Um just and I like that about Nashville too, is we always someone's got to live stream something. So yeah, there's no heavy equipment, there's no like all this high tech stuff, there's no, oh, we have like this whole singer, we need to do a production for her. They just put on the little where they, the Orban goes في التوزيع بعد القداس, and then they put a little laptop, the projectors are working, someone live streamed it. That's as simple as it gets.
that's it. And she's using like Taratil.
Yeah.
Like she pulled up Santakla website.
Yeah.
Ya Salam Al Adra, and she's like putting it out there, and it's like, yeah. And this is actually what's like
Yeah.
our community is like. You bring, and with the Nahda stuff, I think actually they try to replicate things that are happening back home where Mulids stuff too, because at Mulids you would find, so it used to be before the time of Bob Shenouda, there would be singers, like actually regular singers who sing in Afrah. Some of them actually are Muslims too, so they would sing. They would sing actually also stuff for St. Mary, but in a very also sha'bi way, folk way, popular way in Egypt, and then. But with the time of Pope Shenouda, there is actually Pope Shenouda assigned a few bishops to crack down basically on the practices that are not orthodox in these mulids. Of course, they connected the singing with the drugs and
Oh my gosh.
the and unconsensual sexual activities, and they said like, oh, people in mulids, they do drugs, they do sex, so and also sing. So we are
Yeah.
cracking down on all that things, and we're only allowing folks to participate inside the church. Or with the church hymns or tatir, but actually the fact is this couldn't work. It's not. It wasn't even successful. You would find till this day, outside the church is blasting with big speakers, outside of on the walls of the churches with like taratil and alhan all the time. But also you would find folks outside singing and having microphone and having tablas and having stuff like that. So I think actually bringing Heidi Muntasser or bringing singers to churches of people, and actually I want to share
Yeah.
one of these photos that a Coptic photographer, Roger Anis, in Egypt just took. Of course, they are from Getty Images. I don't know if it is up, but you know what? Let me actually stop that and present screen.
And he's on Instagram as
Yes,
something.
here you go. So you'd find this photo, for example, of like folks are carrying
Yeah.
St. Mary's, and this is actually outside of the church. Like they are, because the amount of people actually they won't be contained inside a church building. But you would see here like folks, it's very hot, so folks are taking off their shirts.
Yeah.
They are like many of them having like tablas and on their hands, and this is photo, and like they are celebrating, and this is one of the things that makes a mulid is, and there is actually a like this is also, by the way, happening where those are some of this parade is run by the Coptic Catholic Church in Asyut, which is very adjacent to the Coptic Orthodox Dronka monastery in Asyut. So
Okay.
that, yeah, so the monastery of Dronka is like up the hill, and the Coptic Catholic church is down the hill, and they are happening simultaneously. But yeah, but it's not either Coptic Catholics or Coptic Orthodox. They are having these big parades while they are different, but yeah, and
Oh
actually all
wow.
this like banknote money of like Saint Mary uh, stuff, the speakers and the parades and the tabla, like they're like a professional percussion outside of, and whether the church want this or not, or the efforts that has been happening to make that like to stop, it hasn't. And it's even not stopping in diaspora. Maybe it's different, but even the idea of bringing a woman to sing on her own in front of the altar, this is very, by many, unorthodox. And engaging the audiences, or engaging in a performative way, this is how they call it, or a theatrical way. This is how they call it, because these are terms has been used
Yeah.
by ortho bros, folks who are saying like, oh my god, no, this shouldn't happen in a church. We are like the sanctity of the, like all these things, cute, like cool theological stuff, cool. But Copts haven't been like Copts. They know how to do fun. They know how to like move their bodies and sing. We sing a lot. So when somebody comes and tells them, you know, this is the way that you need to sing. You need to sing with like your compartments or like this, and like any like movement of the body is not allowed and stuff like that. No, that's why there is the tension sometimes, and many in many cases, between the newcomer churches, the immigrants churches, and the white, or
Yep.
the English only churches. And that's,
Yep. I actually was about, I was just thinking that of like the duality if you went into the English only church here in Nashville, what would be going on for this feast day. Yeah, very interesting. I don't know if they even posted anything or did anything. It's not a, they didn't have any, even a nahda. So I don't know. I don't know. They didn't post anything about it. But like obviously the other churches were going, you know, full on for this, yeah, for the feast. So very interesting. And this is gonna go put me through a whole
yes, yes, yes.
tunnel.
Class conversation, please.
Well, it's also interesting that I think within the English only church, yeah, it's definitely major class difference, but also with that comes a very interesting take on women and the role in the church too, because I think the English only church has this assumption that they're a lot more progressive mentally than a lot of these newcomers because they've internalized a lot of this white supremacy of the closer you are to whiteness, the better you are, whether that, you know, is financially, you have a college degree, etc., you are a homeowner, the renters, etc. And it's just fascinating that there's during the one feast that is well, I guess you can consider the nativity fast also surrounding St. Mary, but like this one's very prominently about a woman as opposed to like the apostles feast, which is very heavily sent, even though there are a lot of women apostles. But anyways, very interestingly that this is something that doesn't go on their radar at all because it's seen as very quiche and very, is it quiche? Kitsch? What's
Catch.
that term? Catch. Okay. Yeah, quiche is a food. Quiche
Yum,
is a
yum, yum.
food. Yeah. Okay, I was like, where did I get quiche from? Yeah, seen as very catch to yeah, celebrate women in our spaces. And that's how I've always felt about this feast too, is that it's a celebration of that women in our spaces who don't get celebrated at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I saw Heidi Muntasir, and honestly, I would love to see more
Mm,
Heidi Muntasirs to be brought from Egypt and like
mm,
to sing and like really engage folks. Did you see in the photos and the videos how like women are super engaged? The
yeah, yeah.
Zagharit. I of course yeah, most of the men are like sitting like this and they are not singing. I don't know, but it's other than the Abuna who's like taking
Really, like, yeah,
videos. Yes,
he's like, I gotta show people.
but
I'm at a
also it's like
concert.
yes,
Yeah.
but also it's like it is a beautiful moment. I get that. I know, like we talked a lot
Mm,
before about how in our
mm,
churches there most and many of the practices are against women. It's not advancing
mm-hmm,
women in any way, women in
mm-hmm,
leadership and stuff like that. But also, I think these traditions are ours. They are
mm-hmm.
not the institution, and we can do
Yeah.
whatever we want with them. We can, and I like your take, Lydia, about like, oh, you know what? St. Mary's feast and like fast, it's like centering a woman.
Mm.
Let's like celebrate that. Not to say that the Coptic Church is progressive or like, but
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
but at the
no.
same time, we can take this moment, we can actually own and reclaim that moment and say, like, you know what? Yes, there are many problems with our
Mm,
traditions against women, but also
mm,
this is like a celebration about a woman, and like let's talk, let's have
mm,
conversations around Coptic women. Why are Coptic women here? And in rare moments are
mm,
almost like giving the stage in choirs, because you could see, actually this is what I wanted to share. You can
mm,
see in choirs um, how choirs are mostly women, um,
mm,
and so these moments are really good opportunity for us to converse
mm,
around the position of women
mm-hmm,
in our church and to celebrate that. Oh, for 2 weeks
mm.
we're talking about women. Let's let's discuss
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I also think this was very interesting because when I saw it, I thought that so the context is that the church servants have been for the past month kind of on the defensive end of saying the church doesn't owe newcomers anything, particularly the newcomers coming from the U.S. Mexico border, and on the basis that they are quote unquote illegal. So, and this is like new terminology in Nashville too, because we have never, it's very, I don't want to say it's common, but it's historically we've always had people who are undocumented. So it's not out of the ordinary for us. So now to be calling people who are undocumented, it's very interesting because we started off when we talk about people who are undocumented in Arabic, we call them undocumented, min غير ورق, for over a decade, and now we've kind of regressed into we're going back into calling people and adopting this language from Fox News and white supremacists to call someone illegal. So they've been on very defensive mode for the past month because a lot of people have been upset that Bishop Yusuf has been coming into Nashville every 2 weeks and the situation has not been solved. And we have people who are now unhoused because their relatives don't want to take care of them. And it's worsening, and the church servants are doubling down. Oh, bye, Marcus. Yeah, so the church servants. Hello, you're back?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. So the church servants have been kind of doubling down on this rhetoric. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, they're really trying to avoid the conversation now. They're just, especially during this time, to talk about Virgin Mary and, a very important saint who, the most important story for Saint Mary post giving birth to the Messiah is the wedding of Ken of Galilee, where she's advocating for Jesus to do something about there not being any wine. So this mentality of her always serving and having a mentality towards service. So yeah, so I got upset when I first saw the videos because I was like, well, wow, we're sitting here and not having the real discussion. So I just want to present that as kind of the alternative to what's been going on social media, and then Heidi Muntasser coming on and filling up Facebook to. But we're back now on the discussion. People are now they still won't let it go. So I think just a little interesting little blurb of what's been going on. Yeah.
But also, I want to build on this, and if you want to share the screen, it's I already have a screenshot. Yeah, did you know this story? So
Yeah.
the Middle East Eye, and then, like in many news agencies, there like an abandoned bus with more than 100 Egyptians found in the southern Mexico,
Yeah.
and this is happening to us, Egyptians and Copts. How many? So at least, if Egyptians, if they are saying Egyptians, at least 20% of that bus would have been Copts. They might not have been Copts there, but regardless, there are Egyptians who are being either trafficked or either like desperate to get out of Egypt, and they connected with that group or that bus or whatever. But to say that these like this is the way that is happening in our community of treating folks who move here with less privilege. It's
Yeah.
somebody like our Coptic community
Yeah.
is in North America is about folks who moved here. It's not your business how they moved here. Also, it's you need to check your privilege if a person is saying that, oh, like those newcomers, what to do with the newcomers. I heard it from church leadership. We don't know what to do with. And as a person whose daily work is to work with newcomers who are Arabic speakers in Canada, I hear this from folks who are outside of the community, or Arabic speaking communities, maybe folks who have been here for generations, white folks or other folks who doesn't maybe get the idea of like, but to hear it, to hear criticism about migrants, that all of us as a community, as a Coptic community, migrated to the US or Canada in a way or another. Folks now, we see folks now with way less privilege moving.
Yeah.
They might have only had the like the idea of like, oh, you got the visa to the US to enter regularly. This is in
Yeah.
itself a privilege.
Yeah.
Folks find it harder to get to come to the US regularly, so they go to Mexico. It's easier to get the visa. It's cheaper, and then let's try our luck at the border in Mexico. So this is not just about a Trumpian rhetoric or a right-wing rhetoric of like building the wall and those Mexicans are coming and crashing our and overwhelming our system. Oh, and when Egyptians are trying to find better opportunities to live, Copts when they are trying to find a better opportunity to live, and they somehow, after all that long, way less privileged trip, made it to a church in Nashville or a church in New York or in different parts of, they are looked down at, and they are, and the system or the church system and the institution, they feel like they are a burden on them. Guess what? They are filling your churches like this, and you are bringing Heidi Muntasser, a singer, Taratil, professional Taratil singer from Egypt. You are paying her money to do the tour and to come to fill your churches. And filling your churches meaning the church is not going to close soon like other churches that doesn't know how to bring or attract parishioners. So you are literally building your cachet, the numbers of followers on on the bodies of newcomers,
Yeah.
especially the underprivileged newcomers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the it's always sad to me that people don't even catch why there's a demonization of newcomers, particularly undocumented people. But and it's just to serve the interests of the religious hierarchy, so that they don't get to do anything, or feel obligated to spend money or spend any of the donations that they're hoarding, because people have asked to stop building churches without services. And we still have new churches coming up in Nashville. So instead of having a dialogue about why are we not investing into services, if it requires us to have part-time staff at churches to fill out job applications, to help people get on, health insurance like TennCare and food stamp and get them started, why are we not doing that? The other irony of it being in St. Mary's feast is also that she was a refugee too. And no one would have called her illegal for, because there were no borders, crossing the border to escape a massacre. So it's just a lot of, yeah, a lot of BS rhetoric coming from church hierarchy, and I think I'm glad that people are pushing back in a lot of ways. So there was one church servant who posted, "The church is just a religious and social service organization." We're getting a lot of calls of people who want help filling out applications, but we can help you get to church. If you need a ride to church, call it. And they're terrible at that too, by the way. So they can't even coordinate transportation to the church. But anyways, they were like, if you want to come to an Odes, let us know. And so people in the comments were going off, and they were like, it's completely normal for churches to be open during the week to fill out applications for people, or to support people, or to be housing for the unhoused. So, but I just would like the extra step of divestment, to make sure that they don't have the power to continually say, we're going to spend millions of dollars on a new church, and everyone should be happy with that decision. But a more concentrated effort to say, we're the church, we're the ones building, and we're the ones, filling these buildings, and we're the ones who are the body. It's not one piece is more important than the other. So just because you're a bishop or a priest.
Yeah, definitely that the Coptic churches and diaspora need to rethink how they generate revenue, like any charity, nonprofit, because we know that the model of it's just gonna work. It's not. No, it's never just gonna work. You know that you have a model that doesn't work, which is, and you call it the model of God, we're just gonna do things and it's ربنا هيمشي الموضوع. No, you know that this model is not working because it's the only model where you get revenue. You have to build another church to get a revenue, but it doesn't work. Maybe on
Yeah.
the short term,
Yep.
it works, but we know that with many institutions, when they build, and then there is no future plan.
Yep.
Yes, you can rally people on building, we're opening, we're building, but without future plan of how these spaces are going to be used in the next 20 years, with another generation, these places are going to be emptied. We know, for example, when a community, we see schools get demolished, and because the registration is lower in that space, and we see many white churches that we buy now instead of building, we take over them because of less occupancy. So you need to think of this. You need to get ideas from Al Mahabba and other organizations that these are the things that you can use to repurpose the space for the rest of your week. And actually, We have people, we have experts that can train your volunteers to provide using that space. We have amazing spaces in the Coptic communities to use that space to give services and to get grant money from governments and big philanthropists outside of this. Because also the issue is this model of like you campaign people to because you are building a place, and then you rely on like few big donors, and the kids of these big donors are not gonna give you money after these big donors die. We know that. You know that. So you need to find other ways to generate revenues other than building new churches and relying on big donors. We have the solution. Just listen to
Yeah,
us.
for real. You're right.
Isn't it that interesting that we talk about the future of our Coptic communities and folks might think that, oh, these like folks who criticize the whatever the institution, they don't want the church to continue, or they are really against us and against God. They are the demonic and the devils. And it's,
They are the demonic.
I
I'm gonna
remember.
get a T-shirt.
Yeah, we should make it. We should
I
actually
am
make
the
like
demonic.
WhatsApp merch, WhatsApp cops merches, and like have it. But yeah, we give them. We have been actually through these years. We have been giving a lot of tips to Coptic leadership on how to do stuff better. Yeah,
Yeah. Hopefully they're tuning in. And
or
they're taking
not,
notes.
or not. That's their
Or not.
choice.
Well.
It's not us. We're giving them an opportunity, but that's their choice. And
I'm gonna go and make them take notes. At this point, it's
Yes.
embarrassing.
Yes, I wanted to share this exchange since we are talking about Saint Mary and the theatrical stuff, the theatrical stuff that are happening. An exchange that happened like almost 2 years ago when one of the priests in diaspora shared
Oh,
shared one of the videos. Actually, we
you're
can
gonna have to zoom in.
Yes, okay, I can
Or
zoom
read
in.
it.
Yeah, but also actually maybe I would present another video for
Okay.
like folks are really eating seeing St. Mary's stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not but stuff. I'm just yeah. Here you go. This is so. This practice that I am going to share happened in many churches in Egypt, where they have enactment of like talking about the zuhur, the apparition of Saint Mary, and then they dress up. So there is a choir happening, and then they dress up like a girl, and the girl walks into the church. And folks like iliating, lululating, zagarit, and like clapping and stuff like. So the church like get burst into. So just watch with me what will happen. So
That
you
one person who had a really long one.
but it's like a tartila about the apparition of Saint Mary. فوق القبب بصوا شوفوا, look at the domes, the top of the domes of the church. Saint Mary is in bright color, and they use also a very Egyptian Arabic terms like sit al-kull, and the full, the lilacs, and like really terms that are really connected to the Egyptian and Coptic life. And it makes people elate, makes people get butterflies and shivers, and like even like somebody's like they are spontaneously like clapping. What is this? This Amir is coming, and the Tertila talks about the
Yeah.
apparition. Oh, maybe I am looking for a miracle. I am looking for an apparition. I haven't seen a miracle or an apparition. Let's talk about whether some folks, even on like, they would be skeptical. There is no miracles. There is no apparition, regardless of all these big stuff. And I like, yes, there might be no evidence or whatever. Let's center Copts here and their practices here for a moment. They saw, like in their collective mind, they have been like educated about like the miracles, and like we as Copts, big part of our beliefs are like the afterlife and the other
Yeah.
life and the saints and the miracles and like the supernatural stuff. Whether these are not evidence based or not, Copts like them and they are part of our experiences. And when they happen inside churches, Copt acts like Copts, and sometimes they do things that. And they do things that are subconscious and just enjoy.
Yeah.
They don't need to be confined, but we have a mentality in our Coptic Orthodox churches like to confine and look down at folks who do that. So one priest shared a video like this, and actually you can find many, like actually I have many tabs of videos or enactments like this, and it happened actually I think around the time of like Easter. Some churches in Egypt also try to like dramatize the
Oh, yep,
Tamsilat
yep, yep.
al-Qiyamah,
Yeah.
the enactment of the resurrection, like percussion, or like Jesus is coming from the top, and like, ooh, smoke,
Yeah, the
machines and stuff
smoke.
like that.
The thunderstorm, the rock. Yeah.
Yeah, so folks, like honestly, also, I think also these things might open different conversation around like that the service is too long. Let's put some fun in it. Why don't we think about this? Folks need to move their bodies. Like the science are telling us that like they need to move their bodies. They need to have an action happening. We also see with these like cool new Coptic leaders and priests, they are gaining more followers and they have YouTube channels and stuff like that because they dramatize their voice and they talk like this and like to attract people to. So maybe all these questions need to be talked about. Why do we need to have different practices inside the church in order to engage people and change what they do? But also these celebrations and the singing and the moving the body and the clapping and the ululating is an indigenous and an important part of our practices as Coptic Egyptians, whether inside the churches or not. Whether you go to an Orthodox church or a white church, other Orthodox or white churches, and you see them like they are always like the whole thing are doing this and they are not moving or that could be their practices. But our practices as Copts, this is what makes us unique as Copts, whether in a liturgical practice or in a non-liturgical practice inside the church or outside the church. So this conversation,
Yeah.
yeah, I talked a lot.
I
Reflections.
also think on your point on like miracles and movement and dance in worship. I also think it's like very that a big tenet of white supremacy is hyper rationalization. Like everything has to have an explanation, a category, a full essay written, on this, and a full investigation has to be done on this miracle or on what's happened, as opposed to letting human experience be a human experience, and letting it be something that connects people and creates conversation. But it's just always sad to me when people are very much like, we have to see like the full I'm trying to strike the balance because I think it's also useful, but I think the people who are very much like we have to overanalyze something, we have to see where this term is from and where it dates back from, or what this event or what this feast means, and we have to like extract as much as we can from its history and from the story, as opposed to the majority of people are doing this because their ancestors participate in it and because it feels good and because it's a tradition. Not many people are going back and saying, "Here's the 300-page book on on this whole historical background on this one thing or on this term or on this happening or on this feast." So, yeah, it's always weary for me when I see Coptic people go down that route too of feeling the need to validate our traditions, our culture, our identity by like writing all these books or hyper rationalizing it and being like, well, the pharaohs did this 300 years ago and here's like the and it's like we don't need to do this. Like the majority of people within the Coptic community don't need this to connect with each other or to create and to foster community. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the hyper rationalization. I think it has its uses if you and your friends like to sit and be annoying and write like 300-page things about like the history of something or the meaning or the implications of something. But I think also understanding that traditions and actions within a community can be a lot more about community building and fostering care and being in a collectivist society a lot more than just this is the hyper rationalization of it. But it's
And
my
I
2 cents on
agree.
white supremacy.
And I agree. Actually, I think what we are trying to do here is we challenge the oneness of ideology, the binaryism. That it's just this is how it is. So whether
Right.
folks who are theologically only oriented and they say this is against the theology, or folks who are just focused on historical documents, they say like we haven't known something like this or whatever. We are looking, or folks on the other side who are
Right.
really heavily science based and say like miracles are you can't prove them, and
Right.
so why don't we put all these together without demonizing practices and center Copts? Center Copts, whether they are in diaspora
Right.
or in Egypt,
Right.
and see how like we don't need to weaponize theology to
Right.
oppress an instinctual feeling about a person. What we can do is like we can shift when, for example, miracles are a major money generator, and when there is corruption in that money generation and collection, that's a problem.
Right.
And there is no accountability of collecting the money of like, oh, people like just I'm gonna put the money to get a miracle from St. Mary or whatever. So there might be an issue here. Maybe also this is part of the practice of like, you know what, donating, believing that I will get a miracle. Maybe that's a part of the practice. But are these money collected, are dealt with transparency or no? So this is another conversation. So yes, so weaponizing science against religion and just like it is an issue. So I think like let's focus on how these people, our kin, Copts, practice and not to look down at them, whether using theology or whether using any science or any parts of academia. Like I see people would tell Copts like, you know what? Oh, you don't know your Copticity. Let me teach you how to be a Copt. Let me teach you your ancestry.
How to
And
be
let
a
me
Copt.
let's teach me your. No.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't have to do a lot actually to teach somebody how to be a Copt. You can just observe Copts in different parts of the world, and how they practice and listen and participate and engage, and maybe speak up about criminal issues, about injustices, but celebrate the different practices of Copticity. In this conversation, that was a priest from New York, Abuna Gregory Serafim. The post is public, but the content, the post was about one of these videos of enactment of seminary. And then you would find super deacons or folks who are like heavily centered
wow.
or like with or weaponizing theology or weaponizing other thing to something like this, a comment like, if you want to read it.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
turned the holy places, our churches, into performance auditoriums for musical performances. This is cute, but really sad to see inside a church in front of an altar where we offer the body and blood of Christ regularly. So interesting.
Because also
Performance auditorium.
because honestly, like, oh, why don't we think that all these bodies that perform in front of the altar are incarnated, theosized, or like with our belief in Orthodox theology of like incarnation and theosis. These
Yeah, yeah.
people who take the same body and blood of Jesus Christ, they are gods, and we are the body. We are the same thing, and we can use and practice with our own bodies that celebration in whatever form we want.
What's
I would move my
interesting?
body. I
Yeah.
would dance. I would like sing. What's the problem with like having to keeping
Yeah.
like a certain sad compartment without moving or without like doing an enactment or even a theatrical thing inside the church?
It's also interesting that he ends with in front of an altar where we offer. Because it's the whole point of the liturgy is that this is God offering it to us. And I don't know, it's like the ortho bro has reached such a level that we're even like we are offering the body and blood of Christ. Like he's superimposing himself in a role that's not his own. Anyway, it's yeah, a lot of yeah,
I also
the
don't want
ego.
to talk about my comment because also we might put the thing is, but also another
Oh
super
my
deacon,
god.
he would say, "I abhor
Wow.
this." That is all.
Wow.
It is sad to see this. This is the demeaning that we are talking about. Demeaning
Yeah.
to people, and imagine somebody who's leading a church by like practicing the sacraments or like singing or leading the church in any shape. They say something like this that even like make me feel like, oh my god, you are demeaning all this, and it connects.
Yeah.
It connects to this conversation of like, oh my god, you know what? Newcomer churches are very messy, and like it's always not organized, and like I don't like to go there. Come on, your parents and grandparents are part of these people. Come on, like you haven't been born into an English only church that is very clean and it smells good all the time and always very organized. It is very sad to see that.
Wait, can we see the reply to your comments? I'm invested. I'm invested.
So I think I was like commenting on how it's really nice to have something like this. I commended Abuna. But of course, like folks were gaslighting or massaging using
This is so weird. Even if we skipped over the issues with the musical remixes of ancient hymnology. See, this is like the
again hymnology supremacy, where like folks
Yeah.
feel that, oh, I know Coptic and I know the quote unquote right way.
yeah.
This is more supreme than a Heidi Muntazir in front of the same microphone singing, and most people actually are singing
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah.
Totally different than when you super deacon, standing in front of the microphone and saying a hymn that's not understood or engaging by most folks, and you feel like I am doing the ancient and the more
Oh my God.
supreme
See, this is the over
holy thing.
rationalization I'm talking about. And the thing about like the simplicity of faith is pure and wonderful. Having a master's in theological study, like the fact that he thinks, because he has a college degree from the West, that he, Inés Bosita, blah, 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 blah. All this like very classist language, really problematic language.
Yeah, it's a white
Yeah,
supremacist
wow.
language. It's like
Yeah.
because also white supremacy. It's not about that white people are bad, and it's like no, it's a systemic issue where, yes, the systemically supremacist and racist system. They also do good thing. They do philanthropy. They're like, oh my God, look at these simple people,
Yep,
how
yep,
they
yep,
are
yep.
practicing their ancient faith. Let's look at them. And we talked about this very thing in the last episode about this like
Yep.
white reverend who was like, look at these like ancient people. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like we
Well, and it
shouldn't.
also it comes from the eugenic tradition of white people seeing themselves as more complex and people of color seeing them as more animalistic, more simplistic. So that's what also worries me about this language is when we say these are very simple people, is you're dipping into that tradition that is really, really harmful to see white people as fully human and people of color who don't have proximity to whiteness as the opposite on that binary, as simple, not complicated, not fully human. It's just one stone throw in the river or whatever away from denying them the complexity of their humanity. So yeah, I hate that language. And of course he had to pair it up with I have a master's in theology, probably from an unaccredited university, but I'm not gonna see this makes me upset. This
Yeah.
type of like elitism. But I'm invested.
Yeah. I would leave the comments to folks though, because when you question, so I questioned,
It
why do
is
you think?
literally a theater. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you can actually say you can say the other one. Okay, so I would say so. I question that person's when they say,
Right.
because also maybe this is one of the techniques if you folks, because I also like to challenge folks online, and I call that positive trolling. So engage back, and you don't have to be stressed about when somebody say this. Like really maintain your compartment online and like try to question terms. So I asked, why do you think that the sanctity of the church is quote not kept? And end of quote in that event
Right. Right.
happening in the video. So a white convert jump
Enters
in,
the chat.
yes, and answers me. What was the answer, Lydia?
Because the sanctuary is not, I have to get a nasally voice. Because the sanctuary is not a theater for one. The platform before the iconostatus is not a stage. And, oh, he misspelled aisle. And the aisle leading to the Holy of Holies is not a runway. Oh my God. What does he think the liturgy is, though? The liturgy is performative.
Yeah.
The
And what
liturgy, oh my gosh.
and what's
I
the
can't.
problem with before? And this is actually
Yeah,
the
yeah,
disconnection. If these folks have been in a mulid or have been to Egypt and
yeah.
saw the procession and how like it is the performance is part of the liturgy, especially the Coptic one, and actually in many Orthodox churches as well. The procession is a big part. Don't you like the
Yeah, yeah.
lamentations and like
It is
in
a
Holy Week?
stage too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
especially in the Orthodox churches, in the Eastern Orthodox
yeah.
churches, because of the connection to the empire, the Constantinople Empire. So it became even more stagey in Russian and Greek Orthodox. We are the people, the mess. Like we own the church, so we run around and do things that might not be as like high, and but they still other Orthodox churches they still have
Yeah.
performances.
And what's crazy is like, we grew up hearing that, in the Orthodox Church, you use all five senses. We use the incense to make you feel like you're in heaven. So it is a performance. It is supposed to be using all of your senses. So I don't know. It's such a weird thing. What is wrong, unholy with theaters, stages, and, right?
Crazy. So it's like a long discussion. I don't want to actually waste that, like the
I'm here
podcast
to
time.
waste time.
But yeah, because it's like a long thing. Like again, and folks who think that
Oh my
like they
God.
are just as like um, it's not about
Living a
fancy technology.
liturgical life.
Yeah,
In peace and harmony, in rationality. See, all these white supremacists.
oppressing. So you use
Yep.
words to oppress
Yeah.
instinctual human incarnated, and isn't that incarnated humans, because they are Orthodox Christian and they take the body and blood of Christ. You oppress their feelings by using words like this. So yeah, and then there is a talk about like the supremacy of hymns over madayah and stuff like that. So I think we would leave the link in the discussion in the comment section. So if you folks wanna get to know how orthobros or super deacons are oppressing instinctual reactions to religious practices in our Coptic communities, and especially targeting working class, newcomer
Yep.
immigrants by these oppressions. And yeah, check out this one of the many threads of how
Oh, I
orthobros
definitely
are
will be.
practicing.
I definitely will be. Well, this has been a very informative episode for me personally. So I'm next thing I'm doing is going on that thread, but I'm not gonna. What is it? 2 years old?
It's a 2 years old, and it was
Yeah.
around St. Mary's
Of course. Okay. So there's no
feast.
point in go back.
And then like type
Revive
a
it.
comment and
Yeah.
like verify it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna link the tenets of white supremacy and just
It was
put them
interesting
there.
also because what I like about engaging on social media, especially in our Coptic community, is the fact that when you are not like when you are just trying to think, like to question terms, and let the person, like especially an orthobro or a bro or somebody who's just feeling that they are owning the thing, just to keep questioning terms and let them let out all the oppressions or the hate that they might have, and you would make people more informed that way about how, like, and people actually have the right to choose. I would choose this mentality that use words that ask people not to practice their instinctual body movement and to enjoy music in only certain way. If you want to choose that, this is fine. That's your choice. But also by questioning this way, or questioning the bros or the super deacons, you open a discussion to other folks who might not agree, who are not agreeing, and actually you would get this by either likes to your comments, and this happened through the thread, or actually many of our community members, they send you a private message, and this is what happened to me in that thread, for example. Many private messages has been sent. People even didn't react to the thread or any of the comments, and they sent me a message talking about, oh my god, it's so nice to speak up and to question these like oppressive practices by the bros or by the super deacons, and even like, and some of the messages actually were from church leaders that are frustrated from these super deacons that are like, oh my god, they are, I'm just enjoying posting things, and like folks like those bros, they come on my post and they are like, so let them get the most out of them, because they pretend to be like, oh, we are conserving and we are really
Oh my
protecting,
God.
but the reality is they are pushing people away, and they are
They're
choosing,
the death. The death. Yeah.
yeah, they are
Yeah.
choosing one way to present Copticity, which is a death and suffocating to our Coptic life.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Yeah. Thank you, Marcus, for this time. I'm looking forward to the next podcast episode.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everybody for listening in, and thank you, Lydia,
And
for
everybody.
joining
Yeah. All right. We'll see y'all in the next episode. If y'all want to offer us some feedback or some ideas, we're open to that. Yeah. See y'all.